How you doing today? This is Jim from the Pain PT. Good to see everybody. I have another success story today, and I love bringing success stories, as you guys know. I have Alex here. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, we just talked off air how, it's always nice that you're willing to come on and share your story because it's help other people who are struggling or suffering. So I'm looking forward to hearing it and maybe share with the audience here, take us through what happened to you and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So my story began on a rugby pitch during my freshman year at the University of Michigan. I tore my ACL, and I shortly thereafter had surgery on it. And about a year later, I had another surgery um, due to the healing not going kind of as planned, and complications and whatnot. It was a minor surgery, but that surgery was then followed by kind of this weird kind of increase in physical pain in my left knee, the surgery knee, and it resisted um, everything. It resisted additional physical therapy. It it resisted steroids, shots. It resisted pretty much every kind of approach that I had that I could think of. Um, and so that was maybe so the original injury during my freshman year, and then kind of sophomore and into my junior year, I was made aware of the work of John Sarno, and um, the idea, which always made sense to me, that my pain could be connected to things beyond just the physical. And it was always kind of a hazy idea, but it made sense to me. And I spoke to a number of people, one of them Jim, and I think uh, um, validating that idea, and kind of accessing the right tools to kind of realize the that approach, whereby you can take non-physical strategies to deal with physical pain, um, has really changed my life. I mean, I feel very blessed to be 1 year out of school now, so about 4 years from the original injury. And I there were long periods where I thought my life was over, and that I would never be able to kind of enjoy things again, because the pain and the obsession with it can become so all consuming. But no big physical breakthrough has occurred. It's not like anything's been found out. But I'm happy to report that I now go through my days without worrying about my knee. It doesn't really cause me any great anxiety. It doesn't ruin my day ever. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that there's never any pain, but
You're
it's
functioning
vastly
at a
improved,
much
and
different
yeah.
level. Yeah, because I remember seeing you. You were, you have that the stress over it. You thinking about it all the time. It was consuming your mind at every moment, and you weren't
Oh
doing
yeah,
much at all. You're right. You're very limited.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty much my story. It's
Yeah. So you got back.
I,
So you, and this is a couple of years ago now we spoke, and so you worked yourself back, and like you said, at this point now, as 5 years go by, it's just different, right? Maybe tell the audience a bit more, like tell the audience how it was before, like when you were in the throes of it at the worst, what was happening.
oh yeah. No, it was terrible. I mean, I mean, there was a physical element of it, which was torturous. I mean, I would wake up and I would go to class. I would go on a run. I would go for a walk. I would sit down to study, and it would just be this searing, searing pain that would kind of come out from my knee, and it would change. It would move around a little bit, but it was so consistent, and it was just so deprivating for my life, for my quality of life. It just was. It was really just going out and doing things was, I had to overcome that pain. That was something I had to overcome. Um, and that was just the physical part of it. I mean, that was that was one element of it that was
So the
really
pain on a
terrible.
physical level was like, I remember that was real bad and persisting, but you were working through it at that time. You were continuing
Yeah.
to work through it, expose yourself and
Oh
move.
yeah. I never. Yeah. I always had an idea that overcoming it would end up benefiting me somehow. I always thought I would overcome it, and I always thought that that experience would kind of be profitable for me in the long run. But I mean, in the moment, it was really harrowing, and and I remember thinking very clearly, like, one day I'll get married and my knee will hurt and that will suck. Like that was kind of like where I was at, where it was it was just all consuming both in the moment, but also kind of any forward looking thought was kind of marred by this kind of annoyance that was so kind of strong.
Yeah, that you were gonna basically you're gonna have this forever, and
Yeah.
whatever you did, wherever you went, however your future was. Yeah. So tell us maybe more about your mind, how your mind was during that time, like thoughts and emotions, how you're feeling.
Yeah. Frankly, I think it was a really lonely time for me. At that time, my brother had just left for school to a different coast, and both my parents were abroad. And I think, as a college student, there's a lot of uncertainty that you're faced with. And I like to think of myself as a pretty stable, kind of capable person. I'm very type A. I feel like I always have control of things. But, I think there's a degree of uncertainty that especially you feel as a college student that's kind of very strong and kind of, it's kind of defines your life in some ways. I mean, college students, you're looking forward into life and you don't know how things are going to progress. So I think the combination of needing to feel sure about myself and kind of project a certain confidence, especially being alone as I was and taking care of my family's dog, um, the combination of that and just kind of not knowing what was going on in my life and what my next step would be, um I think created kind of somewhat of a combustible kind of situation for me. I wouldn't say I was overwrought with anxiety or kind of any severe depression or anything like that, but I definitely think that I was kind of in a pretty, looking back, pretty clear way now, kind of you know putting on a certain front of stability and confidence, even though it was definitely a period in my life where there was less stability and less uncertainty, owing to many factors, at least, most among them was my knee and the
Mhm.
the uncertainty around that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you had these other, you had your knee, but you also had these other factors too, the psychological factors that may have been contributing to it.
Hmm.
And then how did your mind, what was your mind like at the darkest days? Was it just like consumed where you're just a very hyper vigilant of the knee, where you focused on it all the time? What was your mind like in terms of,
Yeah. Um, yeah, I would say my resting state for well over a year was concern and worry and kind of this extreme attentiveness to my knee.
yeah,
And it was either that or I would leave that state of attentiveness to focus on, say, school or a conversation or cooking. But it was that was where I was if I wasn't somewhere else. Um, which was very tiring and very annoying and very taxing because you're constantly like, oh, is it is there a new way that I could be walking? I just went on a walk and my knee feels a little better than it used to. Is there a way that somehow I was striking my foot on the ground a little different? Or, maybe I would sleep on my side one night, then I would sleep on my back, and I would wonder in the morning, is there some way that this is all connected? And so yeah, I think the 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 focus and the concern was both kind of a subconscious kind of worry, but also like a very hyper like focus that was kind of very attentive. And
yeah,
yeah, kind of
yeah.
gnawed
It's
at me.
hypervigilance. It's technically called hypervigilance. It's really one of the big characteristics that people have, when you've had pain or searing pain for a long time, where it's high intensity, your brain just latches, it looks for it, it monitors it. It, like you said, you're just, what is it? This thing is that to do that. So you get in a very physical sense of looking at it. And then,
Hmm.
so then how did you, so what was happening as it got better? Like you said, it wasn't like it turned off like a switch. It was just more of a, tell the audience what it was like. Was it a slow kind of fade or out of it? How did it go?
Yeah. I think when you're in the blender, when you're kind of when I was really in the throes of it, I had a vision of a moment where I would leave it and it would be behind me. But I think that never came. That moment of separation from the pain never came. And I think that's largely because in order to kind of, reduce the pain, you need to reduce the worry. And I think when you reduce the worry, then that helps the pain go down. And when the pain go down, that might help the worry go down. And so I think, it's been a long cycle, over many years now. And I mean, what that process was like, it's really hard to look back and say. I mean, I think it's just was a gradual kind of acceptance that my body was okay and that the pain was not a sign of physical ailment, but rather kind of an expression of other natural things that my body is dealing with. And, as I kind of said at the beginning, it's, I'm not so much at a point now where I never have any physical discomfort. I mean, I do sometimes.
You're a human
Um,
being that's alive.
yeah, I'm a human being. You know, I'm, yeah, I don't, it's really the, you know, the concern part that has really diminished by a large amount. I mean, I'm no longer kind of constantly checking in on my knee. I'm kind of okay with however it feels, and I'm glad to report that. I think it's kind of hard to really measure these things, but I'm quite sure that it feels a lot better now than it did 3 years ago, for
Yeah.
sure. But that's not really even what my concern is at this point. It's more, oh well, you're waking up and you're thinking about what you're going to do that day and you're going to bed kind of content. It's you're not constantly worried about that. So I think that's kind of that's been the transformation, and that's, I think, eventually what I realized was really critical to focus on.
Yeah. And maybe share it because everybody, when you get to the other side or where you are now, and you go back, it's hard to reflect. I always tell people when you cross the bridge, the other side, you're looking at it differently than when you're in it, So when you were going about your recovery, and that transformation just took time. Was it just, what were you doing? Were you doing a couple of things? Do you look back on?
I
How were you
think,
approaching it differently, or what were you doing differently?
yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing that I continued to do was live my life. I mean, really, I think that was, I continued to show up to class, to apply for internships, to think about my future in a positive way. I mean, to continue to take care of myself as best I could. So I think that was by far the most important thing. I think, what was also really important for me was speaking to people like yourself, reading books that, that came recommended from experts, not random books on the internet. Um, and yeah, I think to kind of, I don't know, I mean, to have a certain to deal with it with as much of a lightfulness as is possible given the gravity of the moment, I think was really important. So just, kind of trying to take as much of an academic view as you could of your own situation and trying to kind of put it within context, and always breathing and always recognizing that there's going to be a tomorrow. I think was kind of on a day-to-day basis, you're going to have ups and downs. So I think that was, an overridingly important thing.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you got your understanding of what this was, like with Sarno and some of the other books. And we talked, like you understood it wasn't just a purely physical condition. You're able to buy into that, believe that, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
start just going back to life. And one of the things you said, I think is important, is that you just continued on. And I think that was really important. I remember when we were talking, that was one of the things you were doing. You were just working through it. And some people get into too much avoidance, and that spirals for them because then they pull back more and more, and then the fear gets higher and higher, and then it's just a mess. So
Yeah.
you kept going, you were looking ahead, put your attention elsewhere, right? And eventually the brain, you lost that fear, right? That anxiety came down, and
Yeah.
tension came down as well over a period of time. Did you do anything
Yeah.
else for the audience, or was that the main strategies that you did? Did you do any
Yeah. I mean, and I
strategies?
would, yeah, I would say that those were the main strategies. I mean, I think, I mean, I've a couple points. One, I mean, was something that was really useful for me was kind of recognizing the more extreme moments. Like for me, for example, whenever I would travel or be dislocated in any way, that I would always get such severe pain then. And that was really a really powerful kind of just recognizing that was really important. I started journaling. I think that was a really powerful tool for me. Again, kind of trying to get a degree of separation from your own situation and kind of be able to observe it from kind of as neutral of a point as possible and just kind of try to recognize what's going on. Um,
Yeah, so just the journaling, let's highlight the things that was important. You were journaling. Yeah, that can help a lot of people. How long did you journal for? Do you remember?
wow, it's all such a blur. I think I probably journaled for, it was probably like a 3 month period where I was pretty consistently journaling. So not as long as I would like. I'm trying to start again now, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but
Um,
that was helpful, right? Just to offload, like you said, thoughts, your feelings,
oh, for
make
sure.
sense
Yeah.
of some of the stuff.
Yeah. And I think, it's so easy to want to do things that, and I mean, frankly, I think everything that I'm saying now is equally applicable with any number of problems in life, not just physical pain. But it's really easy to want to move away from what's uncomfortable and to ignore it. So instead of kind of dwelling on your knee pain or your poor relationship with whomever, you put on a podcast and you go for a walk and you kind of just leave it behind and you try to move past it, which I think there's a time and a place for that maybe, but it's equally as important to sit down and take a deep breath and try to kind of make as sober of an assessment of where you are as you can. I think that's so important, and
Yeah,
it removes a lot of the cloudiness that kind of surrounds your situation, and I think that uncertainty and that lack of knowledge is really scary for people who like control, which I think a lot of people do like control. And so I think kind of you can really clarify a lot for yourself by just sitting down and saying, this is what happened today, this is how I felt, and this is why I think I felt the way I felt. I
yeah,
think that's really powerful.
yeah. A lot of people have said that. Yeah, you clarify your thoughts and your feelings, and the key things, you're willing to face this, like you said, you're not just ignoring it. And I think that's really important for people to hear that, like the journaling is a way to face, situations, things going on, stresses, stuff on your mind, put it down, organize it, release it, and then go and distract yourself, and then go and right, because you already had a chance to look at it. So I'm glad you said that, because that's a piece of the puzzle for many people. So you're doing
Hmm.
exposure, you kept going, you got your mind not focusing on, trying not to focus on every minute, be positive, journaling.
Hmm.
And then it was a period of time. How long do you think it took to really start feeling like you're out of the woods on, or feeling better?
Um, wow. I would have a really hard time putting a hard kind of date on it, I guess. I would say maybe 6 months to a year, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, I think at a certain point you get comfortable with your process and you gain confidence in what you're doing. And I think once you do that, and that takes a long time, and there are gonna be a lot of resets before you really get to that point. I think, but once you can kind of really institutionalize a process for dealing with the pain and for dealing with yourself, I think once you're there, you kind of and you recognize that things are kind of gradually getting better. Then I think you know maybe there's some degree to which at least I think I put myself in autopilot a little bit, and I kind of reminded myself of this of the things that I knew to be true, and I kind of reacted to things in a way that I knew was kind of healthy for me to react to things. Um, and I think once I was on that path, I would say that was getting to that level of comfort, even though maybe at the beginning of that the pain was still pretty strong. I think that's kind of the point that I would say is when I, really once I had true overwhelming confidence in how I would approach it. And I think that point, yeah, maybe after, yeah, around 6 months, I'd say, of kind of thinking about it and talking to people and really kind of devoting energy to it. So yeah, maybe that's the point that I would
Yeah, it's
put
a
down.
blur, like you said, because it's not a light switch moment, right? It's a gradual time period,
Yeah,
6 months here. It's about right. And like you said, now it's just like it's not there anymore. You're living your life, your attention's on life. It's not
yeah,
on your knee, right? It's like you don't have that pull going there. You don't have that anxiety going around it.
yeah.
Um, so that's super powerful to hear. Yeah, I love hearing the stories, and everybody's got different symptoms, right? But we can see how even the knee pain is can be related to the mind, right? Body relationship. So now you're back doing finish up school, you're back doing everything. You're playing rugby or at all, or now or running, or what are you doing?
No more rugby. That was too violent. I actually moved to New York City a year ago, and I've been working. And yeah, I go on runs all the time. I row. I I average about 18,000 steps a day,
It's
which is
awesome.
a lot. So yeah, I'm very active. I do a lot of yoga, which is wonderful thing, of course. So yeah, no, definitely,
Yeah, I'm really happy for
definitely
you.
getting around.
Really happy for you because when we talked, yeah, you were still going through school, University of Michigan, and so now you're past that and living your life. Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything
Yeah.
else you want to share with people before you go?
Um, I would congratulate people on finding this approach, on kind of having the trust in themselves, and I think the wherewithal to search it out and to begin on it. And I would just encourage people to stick with it because it's things get better, and you're on the right path.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm really happy you're willing to come on and share your story. I was telling you off air. I work with so many people and various amounts of time, and I lose track of people because everybody's going to live in their lives. So I reached out, and you're willing to come on and share your story. So I think it's helpful for people dealing with knee pain. People think knee pain is structural pain all the time, but as you proved it to be true, it's not. And how you can get back to your complete life and enjoying your life. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story today and let people know how you're doing. So thanks you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.